All right, so let's get into this. Barbarian, you have the Thunder build, you have the Frozen build. These are your two types of play. Within each of these, you kind of have two options of how to build it out. What most people are going to be doing for a DPS Barb is the Thunder Axe build, which really comes down to how quickly and efficiently can you get fully charged up to maximize the damage of this Thunder Axe. And there's two methods of doing that charge up. One is by popping your Earthquake, which is kind of like your instant buff. And the other way is just from using your two spammables. So your Axe Thunder and your Wild Strike. So if I use Axe Thunder, its range, it's going to charge up my sanity. If I use Wild Strike, I got to be right on them. That's going to charge up my beastliness. So what you're essentially doing is you're rotating between the two. And when they get maxed out like this, you're going to pop your Thunder Axe to consume it. And it's going to maximize the damage of your Thunder Axe. The next thing you're going to do is hit your Earthquake, and then you're charging up again. You get maxed out. You hit it with another Thunder Axe. Rinse, repeat. I'm just going back and forth. Thunder Axe. Rinse, repeat. Really, to crank up your damage, you're just going to pop your Bloodlust. Bloodlust is going to help you gain your Wild Strike beastliness a lot faster. And Axe Thunder is going to have no cooldown. Axe Thunder is going to be easier to land because it's range. Whereas your Wild Strike, you got to be right up in them to get that to hit. So what can help you generate are a couple passives. Pretty much every build I've looked at are picking up Wild Strike. They're for sure picking up Contest. This is like an everyone's build. Pretty much from here down, you want to buff your Earthquake whenever you can. So Earthquake increasing combo by 6%. Absolutely. I've seen some people pick up Axe Thunder to help them out. But honestly, if you're getting this passive down here, when I'm adding sanity, there's a 30% chance to increase beastliness by half the value of the sanity I generated, and then vice versa. So there's a little bit of RNG involved with Barb. You're always going to be doing the right thing if you're spamming one or the other of these abilities to generate your charges. And again, you want to ideally consume your charges by using your Thunder Axe when this is filled up all the way. That way you're going to be getting the maximum damage buff and the maximum number of hits for your combo, all that good stuff. So I would recommend getting Wild Strike simply because it's going to be harder to land because it's a melee hit compared to your Axe Thunder. So that's why we go 3 points here. We're buffing Earthquake here. We're picking up Thunder Axe, so new ability. And we're going to fill up Thunder Axe all the way so that we get the full benefit of it. So when Thunder Axe hits a target, increase the damage dealt to the target by 3% for 8 seconds, stackable up to 3 times. What this tells you is you want to be rotating these chargeable abilities quickly so that you can get at least 3 stacks of your Thunder Axe on your target. So every time you land Thunder Axe, you're going to get more and more damage on that target. That's why in like arenas, when you see barbarians focus a target, they just like go in on one and they stay on one, because they want to maintain their stacks with this. Each time Thunder Axe lands a combo, it increases your haste effect by 1% for 8 seconds. I believe this is movement speed or attack speed. It's one of the others. Either way, it's just going to allow you to stay on target to land your Wild Strikes. And if it's attack speed, then it's going to be allowing you to throw these off a lot faster and generate your charges faster. And this last one, Thunder Axe deals 15% more damage. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Combo damage is increased by 2% for up to 2.3 seconds after this skill is cast. So then all your other abilities you use after your Thunder Axe, you're going to get that little bit of a buff. This ability like snowballs into itself, which is why it's such a good pick for a Barbarian DPS. All right, moving over to these other talents here. Anytime we can buff Earthquake, we want to. So now our Earthquake additionally grants 16 sanity or beastliness, whichever is lower. So when you're over here fighting and you're looking at your charges, you pop it. If they're even, it'll evenly split them. See how that works? So again, to do this combo, whenever you're fighting, you're going to be just going one ability, then the other one, then the other one. And you're watching this to see if it's charged up. They're both charged up now. Okay, so now I'm just going to wait to do kind of the full thing. We want to pop our Bloodlust to increase our attack by 10% for 15 seconds. 15 seconds is a very long time, right? So we're gonna pop it. We're gonna pop this. We're gonna do earthquake. We're gonna generate. Generate. Pop it again. Generate again. And if we're fast enough on our charges, we might be able to get it off again. We got 3 stacks. Yep, we have 3 stacks up here. And that's it. And basically you're just like rinsing and repeating that whole thing. And you're just gonna just keep kind of alternating between the two so that you can generate these at kind of the same rate. And then you're gonna use your earthquake to replenish that sanity quickly so that you can maintain your stacks. Okay, so like we're low here, right? Use your earthquake. Boom. This is also gonna give you a combo and combo damage buff for 5 seconds, right? So I would think if you wanted to be like absolutely optimal here, you want to get a feel for like what I think this goes up to 100. So if your charges are at, I think this one here, let me just do this one more time. Yeah, if you're up to here, I think that might be too much actually. Let me just drain it one more time. Trying to see. Yeah, okay, yeah. So if you got like at least 2 on each side and you pop your earthquake, you'll go all the way to full. So pop my buff, use this. I'm gonna charge up to there, and then if I pop earthquake, I'm full again. I do thunder axe again. I'm charging up again. I'm alternating here. I'm gonna get all the way charged up, and then I'll pop it again. And there you go. That's what Thunder Axe does. It's really good. And that's what these passes are doing here, is to help us generate more of our charges. Okay. So Earthquake grants 16 sanity or beastliness, whichever is lower. If they're the same, it'll spread it out the same. And again, just to recap, it looks like you just have to get to like these 2 yellow, like, I don't even know, like icons filled up, and you're good to go. Like you could technically pop Earthquake now, but you would get more value out of your stacks if you waited to pop it. You see what I mean? You're not wasting the extra beastliness and sanity. You don't have to wait as long or throw off as many charges to get to that point. Earthquake's giving 16 sanity to one side or the other, and then Earthquake grants you 10 more sanity and beastliness. While it is active, your damage bonus is increased by 6% after casting a skill. Now, this passive here is the passive that takes Warrior to another level in damage. 25% more damage to a target with HP lower than 45%. I think the reason why we're seeing Barbarian DPS just go crazy is because of this passive, especially in PvP. Whenever one of our guys gets below 50% health and the barb's on them, they just can't recover. And it's because of this constant execute damage that barbarians get. So this is an absolute must if you want to just go crazy DPS. And then to move on to the rest of this, you definitely want to increase the duration of your bloodlust. So that's what this does. You get an extra 4 seconds to it. So normally I believe it's 15. And then we go up to 19 seconds with that. So again, in Bloodlust, it says beastliness from Wild Strike is doubled when this is activated. Now, these other passives, you know, I was under the assumption that this would be amazing. While Bloodlust is active, it grants you an aura that grants your nearby allies its 50% attack boost, which is way better than the warrior one. But I think the problem with this is, although it sounds great, it's only going to be for those 19 seconds. You have a 115-second cooldown, so the majority of the time you're not getting this. One of the things that I changed in my warrior build is I took off my aura buff and I picked up like some other passives, and my damage just shot through the roof. Maybe the situation for PvE DPS is if you really need overcharge the DPS burn and like a DPS phase, maybe this would be worth getting so your whole team's got 50% extra damage. But I think for right now, you just don't need this. And then this one, if your skill leads to the overflow of any energy, your next Wrath of Thunder or Thunder Axe deals 5% more damage with a cooldown of 8 seconds. I just don't think this is needed. You don't really want to be sitting at an overflow of energy. You want to be just popping out your Thunder Axes as soon as they're charged up. This is what I've been running on my DPS, and it works really well. Can't believe I had this much combo on my ult. This is better than my warrior. It's crazy. I have such crazy gear. Speaking of gear, let's look at this. With a barb, it's similar to a warrior. You're gonna want combo for your setup. For the most part, you want to get the lower value of strength, and then pick up like cooldown or omni. Whatever it can get you to this first checkpoint is going to be good. I think for right now, where everyone's like starting out, just get what you can get. Once we get like 110 gear, I think it'll make a lot more sense to really dig into the weeds with optimizing. You know, do you have hit on this setup for PvE? Do you have focus on this setup for PvP? For now, just get the best damage ones you can get. If you look at the talent for passive, Wild Strike has a chance equal to the Omni percentage to deal additional damage. Enhanced with Omni, Wild Strike increases the damage of your next skill. Now, one thing to also remember is what the aura is. And I forgot to do this on the warrior video, and I apologize, but the aura is also really important. So gain 2 beastliness per base attack. Casting different skills can gain and cost sanity and beastliness. When the current difference between sanity and beastliness is greater than 30, the damage will be reduced by 15%. So this is very important. You don't want one of your stacks to be way higher than the other, because you will get a debuff. Really important with your DPS, you have an even gain for both so that you don't get this applied to you. You're also going to just provide increased combo and crit by 2% to the whole raid. Super important. You want to make sure you're generating your charges at the same rate. And this is basic attacks. You want to be as close as possible to your target so that you can land basics and you can land your wild strikes. Now for Ultimates PvE, it really depends on the mechanics. So sometimes you're going to want to have the sprint. Sometimes you're going to want the leap. Sometimes you're going to want the slam for interrupt. I think having the heal is just always a good idea. Just in case, you know, you're on potion cooldown or your healer might have died or whatever. It's a 36% max HP heal. It definitely comes in handy in tight situations in PvE. And it may prevent, you know, your group from wiping because you're staying alive and keeping your damage up. So I tend to always get this. The reason why I have break free right now is because we had that root effect in like the previous floor 2 arcane realm. You would get rooted in those vines. So I was using break free to get out of that. And then of course, if a boss has an interrupt phase, you want to use your interrupt. So that's pretty much it for PvE. You don't really need to use gap closers in PvE, but if you need extra movement speed for a specific instance, just grab Beast Sprint. It's a relatively short cooldown, shorter than leap. It's what, 28.8 seconds. Leap is 33.6, so a little bit shorter. For PvP, for melee, it's all about having break free. Your healing reduction is huge. And then while Vulnerate is active, increasing the damage the target takes from 20 to 30% if you upgrade this. So this is how you send your damage over the edge. And what you'd want to do is pop this as you're starting the whole Thunder Axe, Bloodlust, Earthquake combo so that you're getting that extra damage bonus there. And if you're going to go with like stun, or you're going to go with a gap closer that applies decelerate, you might want to go pick up like increased damage on a stun target or on a slow target. What I've been doing is just cooldown reduction. Whenever I get hit, I have more movement speed. And then I just decided to get the damage reduction while I'm stunned, because if I'm getting stunned and I can't move, I'm usually going to be getting hit. So this can kind of help me out a little bit. But for these, just pick your preference, play with them. But this has been working for me pretty good for most of PvP. And then the rest of these, definitely want your break free. This is going to give you immunity for a little bit. When you increase it, it's just going to be a longer duration. And then really your third ultimate is kind of like your flex for a melee DPS. For Battlegrounds, for example, I'd probably go leap, break free, and then you're going to choose a third skill as like a debuff. You could leap in on a front line, immobilize him for 2.5 seconds. You could then hit him with a thunder shock. It's going to inflict a 50% decel. It's going to inflict an immobilize for 2 seconds. Now, this is I believe an AoE immobilize. So if you look at this, cast range 2.5 meters. unleash the power of thunder to inflict a 50% decel on enemies within a 4-meter radius for 6 seconds. So it's going to decelerate them, and then it's going to do a 2-second immobilize, and then they get stuck in place. You do that for a combo. You could use your wild flying axe to inflict stun for 4 seconds. So this is basically a range stun. It has a cast range at 8 meters. It's going to cause a 70% decelerate, which is one of the higher ones. And if you upgrade it, I believe it increases it to 5. So one of the longer stuns in the game is with Wild Flying Axe. I like to stun healers so that obviously they can't heal the team if we're doing like a burst. In arenas, I will pop my vulnerate, and then I'll throw the Wild Flying Axe and stun like a ranged DPS to peel, or the healer to prevent heals going in on the target that I have the healing reduction in damage increase debuff on. If I didn't have a healer, I would get HP up, but really vulnerate is only effective if you can combo it with like another person, another DPS. If you're solo, I mean, it's just going to put pressure on a target. So I would hop on a target that somebody else is already attacking and then kind of help carry their damage over the edge, or, you know, prevent a healer from healing by reducing the healing going in. I think you always pretty much want to have your break free, some kind of gap closer, and then some type of stun or root. I actually play arenas without a leap. I've seen a lot of barbs not use leap. I think most of the barbs I've been fighting are doing vulnerate, break free, and then one of these stuns. I think it's the paralysis. Yeah, this one. Inflicts paralysis for 3 seconds. Continuous control from effects of the same type will diminish. When you hit somebody with paralysis, you can still beat them up with damage, and it's 3 seconds in arenas is an eternity. Upgrade this to 4 seconds, it's even crazier. Let's go over Inscribed Stone. So this is what I've been running. Again, very similar to Warrior. And what I recommend for any new player that's getting in this game, what you want to prioritize is getting your cores, your gem slots, and then your main attribute bonus stat. So for my character, combo is going to be damage. Cooldown's also one of the better ones you could get for the other type of stats. So we definitely want combo because, again, we want to get our core passive here. The higher combo we have, the better. We're going to get more damage increase. Like this is just flat damage increase, which is just nuts. So Barbarian just had across the board has like insane built-in damage numbers. The way you go about this is you build up to the first core. You're going to build up your sides, skipping the stamina ones to get your gems here. And ideally for these gems, you're going to want to get upper left and upper right node increase so that you can buff this by 50%. These two you can only buff by 50%, but I think a good starting point is to get these buffed by 50% from these gems. And then you're going to, once you get these filled up, you're going to move up, do your second core, go up to your next combo, and then to move up, you only need to get one focus. I just did this here because I had a free point. I didn't know what I was doing, but go up to this next one. Now you have unlocked this gem spot. And then it's pretty much the same thing. You want to build up so that you can get to this core. You want to get these gem slots. Now, interesting note about this particular residence spot is I believe this is the only spot where you can get 100% bonus increase. And the reason for that is you have a gem on either side. So for here, you're probably going to want to get an upper left, lower right, and then here an upper right, lower left. And then this gem here, you want to get both upper lefts and upper right, and maybe get left center. Whatever you can do to get these buffed is what you want to do. So when you're rolling for your insignia stones, like emblem skill level is pretty good. You definitely don't want main stats. So like this strive, for example, I wouldn't want to take this all away. I think, in fact, I was just rolling RNG on the gems. You get a new additional effect when you get to level 4, level 8, and level 10 on your gems. Ideal stat or additional effect, again, depends on where the gem is. So like the gems down here, again, you want to just have for sure upper right, upper left for these two, but getting attack bonus is really good. Let me see if I can show you some here. So here's a lower left one. We don't really want lower. I mean, you could roll this. You could take this lower left and potentially see if you could slot it in here to buff this, and then maybe get an upper right to buff the Omni. Could be an option. Let's look here. We got focus. Not too bad. Let's see. Lower right would just be the other side at the top. Emblem skill level. This would be a good one to level up. Health. Definitely don't want that if you're doing damage. Here's an upper central. Definitely don't want that. That'd be a feeder. Stamina, no. Focus, no. Upper center, no. Emblem skill. Well, actually, you know, upper center, you might want to consider it to buff the specialization effect. That could be potentially pretty good. God, could you imagine getting upper left, upper center, upper right for this? That'd be pretty insane. And then like attack or something. That might be like the best thing you could roll. I don't know. Here you go. So upper left node. Nice. Oh, perfect. And this is one of the gems I wanted to talk about. So this is a very good gem to get for a DPS. Very good gem. When it's maxed out, I don't know if I have one that's super high level. Yeah, I don't. I think that's what I'm working on next, is leveling that guy up. You definitely want out of control this intertwined fates. And again, the reason why I want to do that is because it's going to buff this. So let's just take that out and we'll kind of show you guys what I mean. So we'll remove it. And then we're going to slot in for upper left one. So then here, boom. Now we're getting 50% bonus here. And we're going to want to upgrade this so that we get the chance of other additional effects. So let's just do that. I got a lot in here. So again, at level 4 is when we're going to get the next additional effects. I like to stop it once we're at 4 if I have multiple of them. Okay, unfortunately, we got stamina. Not the end of the world because we do want this gem and we already got the upper left. So I think this is fine for now just to go all the way up. And we're going to go to 8. That's 7. Now we're at 8. Okay, we got strength. Again, not ideal. I would prefer to get attack. Attack or increase the level of this would probably be the ideal ones to do. We'll stop there for now, but you can see here, this is the additional effect you want to get is attack. So that's how you kind of go about, you know, setting your gems. Next time I get an insignia stone, now that I've kind of like gotten all the way up to the core and I've reached out and I've got like the cooldown, I got the Omni one. Now I'm going to start backfilling into the ones that have the bonuses. So guarantee probably the next point and maybe the next 2 points, I'm going to pop into here. And then as we get more emblems, we're going to re-roll these and hopefully we can get some better additional effects. But more importantly, you want to get the upper right node for this one, upper left for this one. Same thing here. You want to get this one, you want to get upper left and lower right, upper right and lower left. And then this is probably going to be the hardest one. You want to get at least one of these with a bonus to them. That'd be ideal. And then you're rolling for the effects. Now, for the tanking barb, we're going to change over to frozen. And first things first, you're going to notice that we're just a lot more tanky. We got 42,000 health. We're not going to do a whole lot of damage, but we can still be pretty effective. And you'll notice here, specialization attributes, glancing, cooldown, and you could do Omni for a little bit more mitigation, but glancing is going to be the thing we want to go for. And then our specialization aura, accumulate frozen runes. During the settlement of Frost Strike, all frozen runes will be consumed to grant a shield based on the proportion of the consumed amount. We're also going to give our team firmness, which is going to increase physical defense by 2% during a raid. So the important thing here is the amount of runes that we have when it's consumed by Frost Strike is how much of a shield we're going to get. So when we come to our talents, what we want to be generating is the most amount of runes possible. Now, I've tried Frost Cross. I don't like it. It's a cool ability, gives you a decent amount of frozen runes. It has decent damage, and I think it has 2 hits. It can reduce its own cooldown. You get more damage reduction from this if you upgrade it. I have to like put points into it to see what it is, but I have never really needed this when I play my my tank. Never really needed it. So the way I went about building this was I focused on max HP so I could buff my shield as much as possible because it's an HP shield that's based off of your runes. So it's 13% of your max HP plus 2744, and then of course the frozen rune consumption. So you definitely want to be buffing your HP as much as possible. So this is kind of a no-brainer. And then again, just like the PvE barb, we want to be generating our stack. When we cast Chill Strike, 100% chance to reduce the remaining cooldown of Storm Flying Axe, which is this guy, and Frost Cross if you're using that is one one or the other, for 1.5 seconds and increase the next respective HP recovery effect and damage effect by 30%. So what does that mean? Your Storm Flying Axe is going to grant 10 frozen runes anytime you throw it. It's also going to return 3% of your max HP plus 791. Now, what is cool about this, it's got a 10-second cooldown, but if you go down the tree a little bit further, every time Storm Flying Axe hits a target, its remaining cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. So if you have 3 enemies on you and you cast this, instant cooldown reset. So you can just go, if you have 4, you just spam this. So essentially you're going to be spamming your Storm Flying Axe. Every time you use it, that's 10 frozen runes. You're going to be getting 3% and some change of HP back. And it's going to help you generate a ton of frozen runes to buff up your Frost Strike shield. So against a single target, you're not going to get a whole lot, but against a big group of mobs, it's awesome. Barbarian tanks are great for bosses that have ads because you can essentially use that to supercharge up and super juice up your frozen runes and then be able to just buff up your Frost Strike. That's why we get this passive, but let's get through these first. Increase the HP recovery effect for 1.5 seconds. So when you use your Chill Strike, you then want to use your Storm Flying Axe within that 1.5 seconds. So just like the PvE Barb, we're going to be comboing back and forth between these two abilities as needed. And I'll explain that later. When you are attacked, the damage reduction effect of the next Frost Strike is increased by 9%. So if you look at Frost Strike, when you cast this, you get 5% damage reduction to yourself. So now we're increasing that by 9%. So I think that's 14% damage reduction. And then of course the HP shield. But you have to be attacked and you then have to land the Frost Strike. So if you're diving into a clump, it's usually pretty easy to do, especially if you have aggro on a bunch of ads. Then we're going to move down and get Frozen. We're going to get Frost Strike. Frost Strike deals 15% more damage. Damage reduction is additionally increased by 7.5%. The main reason I got this was just damage. To recap, this is going to increase your damage reduction by 6%, and it's going to buff up your Chill Strike, which is, again, more damage. It's not bad. All right. Now, these other passives, I've played around with this one. So your Flying Axes do more damage and the amount of HP recovered is increased by 60%. You could get this. If this doesn't mean anything to you, you could go with this. The way I look at it, and I think these are pretty interchangeable, especially if you look at how we have our points out. You could take these 3 points and put it into here. If you find yourself favoring the Flying Axes a lot more, or you're fighting, a bunch of mobs that do a ton of damage to you, this is going to buff up the return. So that this could be a change for sure. Take these 3 points out of Chill Strike, stick them in here so that you get more HP recovered for using that. All right. And then the rest of the way down, we pretty much just fill all this out. A Death Fight's going to grant 6% more damage immunity. This is your first oh shit button. It's going to go from 8 seconds to 4 seconds. Now, the way this works is the lower your HP is, the higher the damage immunity you're going to get. So an 8-second buff when we use it, and you want to ideally use this when your HP is at I'd say 50%. You don't want to be using this when your HP is higher, because you're going to get damage immunity. You're going to get the extra physical defense, but you're going to get damage immunity that's really, really tiny. You're going to notice it tremendously when you use it when you're lower HP. And then your Frost Outbreak improves glancing chance by 15%, which is a massive buff, and increases glancing effect by 10%. I think what this really says is pound for pound, the Barbarian has very high mitigation compared to a Paladin tank, which has really high recovery, and a Warrior tank, which has very high AoE clear capability. So this is really where the Barbarian tank shines, I think. It's just the raw amount of mitigation that it can stack, and relatively quickly too. And then on top of that high mitigation, the combo between your Frostbreak and your Death Fight, you're then also going to be able to spam your Storm Flying Axes to return HP back to you. Increase this by 4 seconds. I've seen some people not use this. I've seen some people swear by it. I like using it just because it gives me a little bit of extra time to survive from my healers to save me. This is a great one to get. For every 3 seconds in combat, grant 2 frozen runes and recover 3% of max HP. Think about that. You stack a ton of HP and you're just getting a tiny trickle effect of HP coming in. Very nice to have. Frost Outbreak grants 80% more glancing, major glancing buff, and glancing effect, and physical defense effect. So think about that. If you stack a ton of glancing, glancing, you're going to get a glancing buff up here. You technically could get even more glancing if you want to get 3 points up here. So you could say screw buffing chill strike, forget the HP recovery here. I just want like massive amounts of glancing. Well, then as you're using your storm flying axes, which when you're using these, you're going to be resetting the cooldown from this passive. You could then stack up a ton of glancing effect once your frost outbreak is out. And of course, it's going to make this 4 seconds longer, which is very, very nice. Pop that. It goes to 12 seconds. And then last, we have permanent freeze. All frozen runes are obtained 140% faster during frost outbreak. So when you pop your frost outbreak, you're going to be able to generate your runes a lot faster. And then if you look here, when I pop my frost outbreak, my glancing effect actually went like through the roof. It completely filled out. So those are the abilities to recommend. You could definitely, take the path of frost cut cross if you wanted to. Just remember that if you're going to do that, you're not going to want to get any of these storm flying axe abilities. I'm sure this is equally as viable. It's just going to do something a little bit differently. It looks like it just does a lot of damage reduction, and it can kind of spam into itself. But I've been really preferring the flying axe version. At the end of the day, it's your preference, whatever you like to do. Now, let's show you some combos. Right now, you'll notice that I'm at full stacks. This is what being fully stacked looks like on a tank barbarian. And when I cast my frost strike, it's going to start this animation on myself. And then it's going to apply the shield once the runes collapse. And I'll have this shield for a little bit longer, and then it's gone. So you'll notice that when I use this on its own, it's going to generate some stacks, but the shield's pretty tiny. So how do you generate more shield? Just like the PvE DPS, we're going to want to start doing our spammables. So what I found is for every throw, you're going to do 2 melee hits, and then you're going to do 1 throw, and then you'll get into your melee hits. And as I'm doing these, you'll notice that I'm getting charged up. Now, I may not need to wait the entire time. I may not have to charge the entire bar, because this is going to give some frozen runes. So ideally, you want to get to this checkpoint here, and you pop it. Okay, you're almost there. Now, there's a little bit of delay when you use this ability. You're not going to get your shield right away, but if you're fast enough with your charges and you're hitting enough targets, you get your shield to apply as your previous one fades, and you just rinse and repeat. Now, to really supercharge your shield and your runes, you want to get multiple targets with your storm flying axe. All right, so now check this out. See how that works? I can sit here all day and just jam with this one flying axe. It's going to have an instant cooldown, and I can just get full charges. So that's what you want to be aiming for with this guy, is trying to line up your flying axe to hit as many targets as possible. Now, when we are in a group like this, you want to be rotating your axe cyclone as much as possible, just to get a little bit of extra damage on the clump. So it's going to look something kind of like this. Shield, reapply, reapply, stacks, shield, reapply. So you might want to just get this fully charged up before you do your next set of axe cyclone. That's pretty much it. It's not that complicated. Now, if you wanted to help out with clearing trash a little bit faster, you could take these 3 points out and stick them into buffing your axe cyclone for 15% more damage on that ability. So out of all these passives here, I really feel like this is your flex one. So to recap, you could take these 3 points out, stick them in here for the extra HP recovered. You could stick them in here for the increased glancing chance. You could stick them in here for the increased axe cyclone damage. Now for ultimates, it's going to be very similar to the PvE DPS barb, but obviously you're going to have taunts. By default, I like using the AoE taunt. The AoE taunt's got a 57-second cooldown. The single target has a 14.5-second cooldown. So you can pretty much get like 4 of these off and the time you can get 1 of these off. Swap these out as needed. This one's got a 16-meter range. This one has an 8-meter range. So keep that in mind as well when you're tanking bosses, especially the merfolk one. If you're like the off tank as a barb, you want to be careful with this 8-meter. You could potentially grab the ads if you're on the boss, or vice versa. If you're on the ads, you can also pull the boss. You're going to pick up one of these, and then depending on the boss, you may need the interrupt from slam. You may need the break free if there's like a route affix for the dungeon, and then maybe like a movement speed one. But I think this is what I was doing for like the latest Arcane Realm one, and it was fine. I didn't really need to have the speed, but it's nice to have. I think this is more, these for me are more for PvP, but we can get into the weeds for that too as well. So let's look at the PvP stuff. B-Sprint can remove decel, stun, immobilize, and grant a 10% damage immunity for 1 second. There's a lot in this. This is a loaded ability. Now, what you might notice about the tank barbarian is the amount of CC cleanses that it gets. So look, you have this one here that can remove stuns. When you upgrade it, the immunity effect will go up. You look at this one, contempt, which is one of your taunts, but in PvP can remove all control effects except paralysis and grant a 30% damage immunity for 2 seconds. So massive damage immunity for using your AoE taunt. And then there's a third cleanse you can get, immune to all controls for 2.5 seconds after using break free. So you could literally run these 3 and just have like full anti-CC. High mobility, high damage immunity, anti-CC. You could pick up Vulnerate if you don't have any other melee in your group for PvP to do the healing reduction. You could pick up the Flying Axe for the stun, and you also have a Silence. So in terms of CCs, the Tank Barbarian has the craziest arsenal when it comes to variety of CCs. You have the Silence, you have the stuns, you have a paralysis, you have all these removals, the different debuffs and damage immunity. It's very fun. Similar to the PvE DPS, you can also pick up the Elite. What I have found is running any combination of these is fun, but really you just got to think about your group. What are you trying to achieve in your group? Are you trying to bait CCs onto yourself, so you're going to be really in the front line? Well, then you're going to want to pick up maybe more than just break free. You're going to want to get contempt, and you want to get D-Sprint. I think for sure contempt, because this removes everything except for paralysis, but it's that 30% damage immunity that's going to save your life, because you could essentially pop this and then your death fight if you're low and get out of trouble. Now for passives, I think this is going to be similar to the other ones that I've done. You're going to want movement speed if you're being attacked. I think every melee should get this. Reducing your cooldowns, kind of a no-brainer. And then, I was doing extra damage done, but, I could see how this could be good if maybe you were to buff up like your AoE damage from Axe Cyclone, and then you're applying like some slow effects. This does a decelerate in an area, so you could like leap into an area and then pop your Axe Cyclone and then just start spamming Storm Flying Axe. So this may not work in this training area, but essentially what I'm talking about is you would leap in and you would start doing this into a clump. It's just going to increase that initial damage that you do on those targets. So again, you would leap, you'd pop your Axe Cyclone, and then you'd start chugging out your Storm Flying Axe. Obviously your Frost Strike to get your shield up eventually. You might even want to lead with your Frost Strike. Just depends on how many enemies are there. You can also, for a combo for initiating on a tank, especially for like battlegrounds, right? Leap in, pop your glancing. You have all your defensive stuff, your max stacks now, and then you're just chugging out your AoEs when you can, reapplying your shield. In the event that you were low, you would just pop your death fight. Now for emblems, in terms of the distribution, I'm kind of doing the same thing as my PvE DPS. However, the gems, you're going to definitely want to do different. For sure, you're going to want potential. When your HP is below 35%, damage immunity is increased by 2.75%, and HP is recovered by a percentage of your attack per second. So you're going to get a trickle heal when you're low, which again, that trickle heal is going to stack with the trickle heal that you're going to be getting from Frost Spread while you're in combat. And then more importantly, it's the damage immunity. So you're going to be able to combo this damage immunity with your death fight damage immunity. So I think that's an absolute must for a barbarian tank, or you can maybe even say for any tank. And then the rest of this for now, I just have like extra damage in, like Intertwined Fates, I think is a great one. Out of Control, again, extra damage. But if you look at these other ones, you could get High Energy Potion, which if you look is going to give damage immunity. So this would definitely be a great one to get for a tank. I think honestly, this gem is good for any build. To recap, High Energy Potion, Potential are going to be some absolute must for the setup. You might want to do Challenger's Decision. The only problem with this is you're not going to have a whole lot of attack. This might be better for recovery on a DPS, but you really want to focus on the additional effects. This is what matters more than anything. You want to be able to stack up as much glancing as possible on your tank barb. I think that pretty much covers all of it. If anyone has any questions, just remember to drop a comment. Hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.